This episode is brought to you by the RVA Podcast Network. Find more information at rvapodcast.org.
We do not own the rights to anything or any music that's heard during the duration of this podcast. Also, a lot of these shows will have explicit content. So if you are not a fan of any cursing or profanity, you may want to walk away, but that does not mean that every show will consist of such. What's good, y'all? It's season 5 of the Past BT Pod with your host, BT. We have a new season here, and it's time to get this show going. As you all know, we talk about sports. Sports won't be as big of a carrier this year. I think we'll be carrying more towards the stuff, and predominantly on the sports side, you'll be hearing more from the musical aspect, but we will still be talking about technical. We'll be giving you the video game content. I will still be going over the ass of the week. We'll definitely be passing the message. You'll be getting an angel number, and you'll get quite a few gems. So sit back, relax, take your time, don't waste your time. This is the Past BT with your host, Brian. Oh my goodness, it seems like an eternity since I've sat in front of this microphone to do an episode, but we are here, 317, coming back, recording like I never left. Your host BT with yet another episode, and I'm going to go ahead and forewarn you, this will probably be a very jam-packed episode. I'm hoping to not go past the hour and a half mark, but I can't make any promises strictly because there's a lot to unravel and there's a lot of things that have gone on, and I want to make sure that I get every story out there that has occurred. I'm even going to be using my outline to break down a lot of this, so if I'm referencing and thinking about stuff on the go, y'all know how I do. I'm not going to lie to y'all. I'm not going to sit here and fake it. I have missed recording. Normally, I'm usually, at it, focused and going. The life version of it, life happens and you kind of got to take a break. I wasn't, it wasn't that I was in a position or a space that I was considering pod fading or not recording. It just, when other things are a priority, you focus on those other things and then you come back to what you are meant to do in its due time. So I want to get that off the table before we go any further into anything else. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and do our favorite intro and our favorite startup, the angel number, which any of you do or don't know, we always do it based on whatever episode we're on. And since we're on 317, we're going to do angel number 317 for today. What if someone told you that the fact that you keep on seeing the number 317 all the time is because you have been assigned an angel with that number and they are using it to communicate with you? It's always good to look at the bigger picture of things, and in this case, delve deeper and find out the message behind the angel number. Your angel number 317 is telling you this is the time for you to blossom. The same way you have to water a plant and provide the right conditions for it to grow, you have to create the right environment for yourself to prosper. Cut ties with toxic and negative people. It may be hard because you have an attachment to them, but it is the right thing for you to do. This angel number 317 is made up of 3 digits which have individual attributes. When was the last time you lifted someone's spirit by putting a smile on their face? Number 3 is all about encouragement, giving hope to someone who is hopeless. Restore trust, faith, and belief in humanity because they had been disappointed at one point in life. Moving forward, not maintaining the same status quo at the same time brings change into your life. Those are the attributes of number 1. Number 7 is all about integrity, pushing towards your goals and a better understanding of oneself. We're going to talk about that very briefly. At times, we make decisions that we end up doubting the choices that we have made. Your guardian angel is telling you that the decisions, changes, and choices that you have made recently are the right ones to make. You are on the right track to accomplishing your goals, so keep on moving. Angel number 317 says that instead of making you blossom and grow, toxic people eat up on your best energies and positivity, making you wither and stagnant in a particular space. For you to make it big, you need to make tough choices and cut links that don't grow and benefit you. Your angel number 317 is reassuring you that you are never in it alone. Those challenges that you face and the victories that you experience, there's always an angel number guiding you and prompting you on. Be your biggest cheerleader. I'm going to share this because it's relevant to this conversation. I'm a huge believer of really understanding that constant quest of being the best version of yourself, of oneself. I've adhered to understanding a lot clearer what the Mamba mentality is about. I think the last time I have a few football stories, but before we get into those, since I haven't recorded since it has already been played out, we will give, I don't know if I want to say congratulations or what happened. Congratulations goes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for winning the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs. It was 31-9, if I'm not mistaken. It was not as a minimal fan of football, for a lot of people, it was a sight for sore eyes. And I can attest to that because a lot of people who talked about the game, even days after it played, it was the league is rigged. You know, they were throwing this. They were trying to give the Super Bowl to Brady, and I guess we need to just go ahead and get it off the table now before I go too in depth with this. Could it have been played differently? Yes. But you also have to think of it that it still requires the effort of the team going out and playing their game. And I personally just don't think Kansas City played a good game. Bad calls or not, Mahomes got a lot of pressure. He was pressured multiple times in this game, and it showed literally from the coin toss. And that's kind of the lighthearted version of it. There was a lot of questions and concerns regarding the halftime show with The Weeknd. Information came out afterward, but then it's also, if you really looked at it, you can kind of tell that was him doing what he could as a performance, but it gave me Soul Train energy. And those who are young enough to not have seen Soul Train, just watch an episode on YouTube and you'll understand. And when I say watch an episode, watch someone perform a song on YouTube and you'll see what I mean. It wasn't the best, but it also wasn't the worst. I mean, for the entertaining purposes of the performance, it did its job. So we gotta, go with what it is. I'm not a person that, and anyone who knows me knows, I'll say it because I can. I am guilty of being that music snob in how I listen to and or receive music. But I also know, like, it's a process and it's steps to how we get the finished product a lot of times. I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, the game itself, like I said, Brady was, I believe Brady got MVP. Gronk had 2 touchdowns. Antonio Brown scored a touchdown. There was a very balanced gameplay from the team. The fact that the Bucs were able to get Leonard Fournette, and I believe they got LaShawn McCoy as well. Like, they had a good amount of players on the team to play. Not Antonio Brown, but Le'Veon Bell was on Kansas, but we really didn't see much of him. And yeah, it was you got what you got. Like, it was a little bit of taunting in the game. Like I said earlier, penalties weren't, or a lot of play calling wasn't at its best, but a referee, there wasn't a lot of good play calling by teams or by Kansas City through the game, but also there were a couple of, this was called a little chippy, a little tacky, and the fact that they called this a pass interference, it shouldn't have been called as such. But I think too, it's, if you're a fan and you understand the sport, then you kind of can understand when someone has been, if you're a wide receiver and you're running down the field, the defender can only run as good as the person that they're defending. So if the person that is defending them has outran them, if gravity's undefeated. And the simplest version of it was, there was a play where the player happened to clip the wide receiver. That's affecting the progress of him trying to make a play for the ball. You can't not expect that call to be called. Like, that just doesn't add up. Give me 1 second, y'all. All right, y'all. My bad. Sorry about that. That was, technical difficulties, paying the bills, life's like whatever. So, yeah, like I said, we already got what we got from the Super Bowl, so it went how it did. Like I said, again, congratulations to the Tampa Bay Bucks. I know a team that's licking their wounds and having to struggle with this one is the New England Patriots. And then I'll share one other story, and then we'll get into the stories that I have. A video, I don't like this term, but it's media term, so you gotta call it what it is. A video, quote unquote, went viral of a kid at a Cam Newton. I'm not sure if it was a camp, but it was a camp that Cam Newton was at. And Cam Newton was going to, like, he was walking away from the kid, and the kid was like, "You're a free agent, you're ass, you're trash, you're not this, you're not that." And I almost feel like I'm doing a passing message earlier. Like I said, this is going to be a very unpacking show. So if you are in a seatable position or sittable position, seatable is not a word, but we're going to make it one today. If you're in a sittable position or are able to kind of sit and process what's being stated, then you'll understand this a little clearer. The kid isn't really even a known name, or did not become a known name until this happened. And, Cam comes back to him. He responds, but he didn't need to respond. And, the thing that you look at is, it's a term or it's a statement that's used a lot of times. Reputation exceeds character. Cam Newton has had statistical stats, or he's had stats that we won't see from many quarterbacks for a while. As far as rushing and passing, and just a balanced game. Like, I think the next coming of it that we're watching now is Lamar Jackson, who by far is playing out of his mind, but that's, another story. Cam has been has been to a Super Bowl. He has won the MVP. He has won the national championship in college. He's won the Heisman. Yes, we can all say what we want to say about the debacle against Denver, but that's a separate conversation. But even with those things being the case, and even with him playing in football, he's been getting paid. He's gotten like a pretty substantial paycheck, if you want to call it that. So, for this kid to come at him and make that comment, and then later they show like a follow-up video where he's talking to the kid, explaining like, what have you done today? Or what's your team's record? How have y'all looked? What impact have you made towards this game? And it's like, Cam was cool about it, but I think like a lot of it's a tough battle, because when things are interpreted, it's interpreted based on what's seen and what we go off of, and that's going to be the conversation. And that was what this entire thing entailed and what it observed as, from how I looked at it. The reason why it's an interesting scenario, like I said, I personally don't remember the kid's name, but there's an article that's up that does, show the kid offering a quote unquote media apology. He looks at it as his actions were wrong and it was not the right demeanor and these things, all of that. But I was just like, you got to also realize that doing this could have affected your possibility of schools are going to change how they look at you as a player. Like it's certain players that do certain things that put them in certain positions. That's all I'm going to say. And we'll get into one of those when we go through some of the stories, because I actually have one that I'm going to talk about in a bit. But anyway, I don't want to jump or stick with that too long. This article's a little, like I said, a lot of these articles are going to be a little me catching up, but they're going to bring us to where we are now with what has been going on and where we are with the state of the sports and stuff world. Jim Irsay provided a message about Andrew Luck's future, because there's an uncertainty or a question of whether it's possible that Andrew Luck may come back, and Jim Irsay made it clear he ain't coming back. It's something to look forward to, but the reality is he's likely not gonna come back, and fans have to be okay with that. As big of a fan of you as you are of a player or can be of a player, you have to remember it's not about you. Players have lives. People have lives. And we'll get into that story as well. So consider those things when looking at, this person, this guy. It looks like he's, could be possibly still in shape and could get back out there and play. If your head ain't in the game, there's no need in you going back out there and play, because you're not going to give your best effort to yourself. Not just the game, but to yourself. Like, to yourself, you're not going to feel right in doing it. And it's going to cause, it becomes a higher risk, but a lower reward. Like, you're heightening the chances of something more damaging occurring. And the reward may not be what you're looking for. I mean, when players are playing, yeah, they're playing for the contract, great. You want to win the Super Bowl, great. But you also are doing it because it's, deep down, it should be something that you love. And I know that's going to go down a rabbit hole, but we sometimes are in positions or in places that it may not be what we love, but the incentive is there. The money's the motive, the environment's the motive, the people you're around, the room that you're in, like all of those things play into that. And sometimes you may or may not realize that until you're put in that position to really understand it. But yeah, Irsay did leave that message, and we're, just looking at it for what it is. So Lori Locust and Maral Javidafar have become the first female assistant coaches to win the Super Bowl. Big news, big story, and this is something that I definitely wanted to make sure we put in as a topic on the podcast, because not everyone can say they did what these two young ladies have done. They've become the first pair of female coaches on a single team to coach in the Super Bowl. And the referee, Sarah Thomas, became the first official to work a Super Bowl. Last year, if we all remember, Katie Sowers was the first female coach to coach in the Super Bowl, even though the 49ers lost 31-20. And these are just making progresses and big steps in the right direction. So I love it. Like, I think it's great. Locust, who took up semi-pro football at the age of 40 and most recently coached in the AAF, and was an intern with the Baltimore Ravens under renowned defensive line coach Joe Cullen, was hired last offseason as the Bucs' assistant defensive line coach. Javidafar, a former college basketball player at Pace with a doctorate in physical therapy, was hired as the Bucs' assistant strength and conditioning coach, physical therapist. And I don't know if we talked about this, but I want to say we did. This is something that you're going to see be helpful to the NFL, because whether people want to realize it or not, athletes need therapy. I don't know how else you can get that across. I know a lot of people have their angst and their likes or dislikes towards therapy, but we got to call it what it is. Like, a lot of players genuinely need some place or a space to openly talk, and having someone who's, skilled at that makes it a more safer space. And I remember, even though this person and I aren't friends anymore, I remember someone who I've known sharing, being able to have open dialogue in a place such as church. And a lot of people looked at it as, well, I don't know if I would be open to doing that because I'm in church. And it's kind of an interesting scenario, because we really don't realize it. We have open dialogues with people in places other than like in the private of someone's office. You have open dialogue in Starbucks. You have open dialogue when COVID, pre-COVID, at bars. Those are places of therapy unbeknownst to you. But there are examples to look at. Hopefully the teams like Tampa Bay have set the example to start to look at candidates regardless of gender or color and really start to broaden their talent pool. Arians hopes this will lead to more opportunities for teams to hire deserving female coaches. And they give a little bit more information in regards to this. I'm not, Arians hopes this lead more opportunities. It's awesome. Arians told ESPN, I hope it breaks down more doors. Arians has also been a champion of racial diversity. All three coordinators, offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich, defensive coordinator Todd Bowles, and special teams coordinator Keith Armstrong are black coaches, as is run game coordinator, assistant head coach Harold Goodwin. And it's still being talked about even afterward. It's still an odd scenario that Byron Leftwich didn't get any interviews regarding any job openings, which still doesn't add up, but whatever. Russell Wilson is frustrated with the Seattle Seahawks. I don't think we talked about this last time, but Deshaun Watson is somewhat in a similar boat. Just the Texans organization was beginning to change its culture, and he wasn't a big fan of it. But Russell Wilson was just has been frustrated with just feeling like he's been getting hit too much. He's expressed his desire to be more involved with teams' personnel decisions, but he also has stated that he is wanting to leave Seattle. There are a couple of teams that have been put on the table. I believe New Orleans was one. I can't think of the others offhand, but that is a story that did hit the feeds a couple of weeks ago, and it's still an ongoing conversation. It's March. If he is likely to be let go by the team, I mean, well wishes, because it's him getting what he deserves and not being in a position where he's unhappy. Because the worst thing you can have is a player playing for a team and not being happy, and then it's causing more tension within the locker room and within the environment, or within the organization as a whole. I'll just say that. I want to bring this story around only because it was as a basketball fan, I watched this happen. So watching it happen was very different in the observation of it just occurring full circle. I'm going to give the article its attention by far, but I'm going to give you the visual of what occurred if you did not see it. Kevin Durant had a long streak. He had a streak of starting multiple games in his career. He had, consecutive games of starting an NBA game. The game starts. They were playing, I believe, Toronto. Yes, they were playing Toronto. They went through what's called contact tracing, of looking at if you may or may not have been around someone who could have possibly tested positive, then we're having you to not play. So the contract tracing had him where he wasn't a starter. Early in the game, after the game is started, they come out and they say, hey, you can play. Kevin Durant comes in, plays. He plays the first quarter, plays a bit of the second quarter. Early, somewhat mid-third quarter, someone comes up to him and states that he tested positive, or the contract tracing was valid, which then led to him being out the rest of the game. So in hindsight, he should have never played the game at all. I don't believe it's in this article, but the part for me of this whole story that stands out is just the simple fact that I literally remember him being after this occurred, he goes on Twitter and says, "Free me," referring to him being free and being able to play. And it became very I wouldn't even say controversial, more than conversational. And that's kind of the the gist of it. So one of the tweets that really got attention was, can everyone stop saying things like out of an abundance of caution? We're just saying words that don't match actions for PR over and over at this point. And then he responds and says, yo, NBA, your fans aren't dumb. You can't fool them with your whack ass PR tactics. And it was just like, the thing that's interesting, even in looking at these that all happening, I don't even think the NBA got involved. They didn't do any, because you could have looked at that and possibly he could have been fined for that, for making that statement. Because I mean, the NBA is cutting your check. You still have to be respectful of your employer, despite how you may or may not feel about them. Like this slight trigger but transparent occurrence. I did something similar where I was dumb enough in mentioning a company, and the company came back and gave backlash. It affected me being employed at that company. So now it's terms that I use to make sure that people don't even think that I'm even close to saying what it could be related to. And it's just a way of moving and working in a proper manner to not screw yourself over. That's kind of the light version of it. So I wanted to make sure I mention or address that before going too in depth into this. So they said COVID. So COVID. I think that was another thing that came up. They were calling him COVID Durant, and I was like, yo, the internet and just people have to stop. But it was so spot on, so I couldn't. It's almost like you this far and you might as well just call it what it is. Kevin Durant had COVID-19 last March, yet he has been one of the players most impacted by the league's preventative measures against it so far this season. The Brooklyn Nets star missed 3 games in January because of the league's health and safety protocols and has been ruled out of Saturday night's game against the Philadelphia 76ers. Brooklyn coach Steve Nash said Durant will be able to rejoin the team on Friday, a day before Brooklyn is set to face off against his former team, Golden State, on February 13th. The reasons for this nearly week-long quarantine is due to Durant traveling to and from the practice facility with a team employee 3 separate times on Friday, with neither of them wearing masks. The team employee reportedly tested positive for COVID. This comes after Durant went through one of the strangest sagas of the season on Friday night during the team's game against the Toronto Raptors. He underwent why do I want to call it contract? He underwent contact tracing that prevented him from starting, according to ESPN's Woj and Malika Andrews. This is where things get complicated. Durant was then allowed to enter the game midway through the first quarter, marking his first appearance off of the bench as an NBA player. It was reported then he did not need to undergo further testing, but someone he came into contact with did. Prior to the game, Durant traveled to and from the practice facility with a team employee 3 different times on Friday, with neither of them wearing masks, which we just learned earlier. The team employee tested positive, which is why Durant was held out at the start of the game. However, he was then cleared, played a good chunk of the game, and then was pulled out of the game during the third quarter due to the league's health and safety protocols because that person registered a positive test. And the NBA statement then goes as such. Kevin Durant has tested negative 3 times in the last 24 hours, including 2 negative PCR tests today. However, someone he interacted with this afternoon subsequently had an inconclusive test returned shortly before the game. Durant was initially held out of the game while that result was being reviewed. Under the league's health and safety protocols, we do not require a player to be quarantined until a close contact has a confirmed positive test. During the game, a positive result was returned for the person Durant interacted with this afternoon, which, as we mentioned earlier, was his driver. Once that test was confirmed positive, out of an abundance of caution, Durant was removed from the game, and contact tracing is underway to determine if he was in fact a close contact of the positive individual. Then Durant went on to give his rant, which I shared earlier. Durant's absence forced the Nets to start Bruce Brown in his place against a Raptors team that has won 7 of the last 11 games. And it got a little odd because, and we'll get into this in a few, it became a very challenging space because even after that, he was having health concerns. And health-wise, I mean like a physical injury. As far as him, he was listed as a starter for the All-Star game, only to then confirm that he was likely going to be out up until the All-Star game, which put another player in place of him. And I was able to get more clarity on how that all worked. And like I said, we'll talk about that in a few. But it was just that night and that interaction as a whole still sticks with me to this day of just how it all went down and just went left. But yeah, that was that I wanted to talk about that story in just its entirety and how it all occurred. So that's kind of what that story was about. Just something a little different, something that you would not hear or see on a regular basis, but here we are. I was able to keep close eye on this trade, and when it officially happened, a lot of people kind of looked at it the same way, like it's about time. And it was Derrick Rose going to the Knicks for Dennis Smith and a 2021 second round pick. The light version of it, and I'm gonna return back to what I said earlier. Dennis Smith Jr. was a highlight reel in high school, but I don't think he was a highlight reel to be on the radar of a lot of bigger schools. He chose to go to NC State. I don't know if now, and I don't remember I don't have his recruiting information directly in front of me, so I will look at it like this: we'll call them the Blue Bloods. Duke, North Carolina, Kentucky, Ohio State, Michigan State. Heck, we'll throw Michigan in there. I think if any of those schools had been in the mix or a possibility, I think he would have gotten a better showing. I mean, he like going to college was just him. You already knew when he went to college he was going pro. I mean, he showed out and he did his work. He did work in North Carolina State. Don't get me wrong, but I also just when he got to the NBA, it became like it was a train wreck. And let me be clear, because I always like to say this. I have played basketball before. I know for a fact if I were to get on the court and say, hey, Dennis Smith, let's go one-on-one, he would embarrass me with ease, because I am not in shape to play basketball, number one. And number two, I know he's still an athletically gifted player. I want to make sure I put that all in there as a fair disclaimer. But I'm just looking at career-wise and the career-wise timeline, what occurred. Fast forward, he goes to Dallas. First year, kind of doing doing a little bit. I think Dirk was in the process of retirement. I believe the second year was when Dirk officially retired after that season, and they traded him off because I think that was when Luka came in. And here it is, you had like an interesting scenario because it was almost like a torch being passed, because Luka was getting more time on the floor than Dennis Smith Jr. And everyone still wants to look at, it was a trade at the time because Atlanta and Dallas traded picks as far as Trae Young and Luka Doncic. It was good that Trae Young was not in Dallas, because I think he had a greater opportunity to get more shots in Atlanta than he would have in Dallas. Just my personal take. But I'm giving all that information and turning it back to Dennis Smith, because he then went to New York, and it was kind of like I won't even say a fight for time or space, but it was more of him trying to get into the groove of the game. I don't know how to describe it. He wasn't really getting the minutes. Then Thibodeau came in, and it was, all right, you're not gonna really see him much. And by the time, we saw the infamous highlight, I think he was in Utah and he did like this I would call it a rev up, where it was a dunk that you just aren't going to see in game. But the way it was done, it was like, okay, we know he's athletic and talented. Even outside of that, he didn't play that night, I don't believe. And I mean, the main thing you're looking at is players want opportunity to get time. And he didn't get much time in New York. So Tibbs was able to continue the let's bring it all back together type of thing by bringing in Derrick Rose. He already had Taj Gibson, who Taj hasn't really been playing a lot this year, but having that, reference, and people use this term, but it's actually a valid term in the NBA. Veterans aren't valued as much as people realize for the veteran leadership as well as the knowledge of the game. Because they're going to be able to see the game in a way that a player that hasn't been in the league 7 years is going to see it. Like, there are guys who we're watching develop over time, and they're now starting to get into their true form of their play. Perfect example, even with this trade. Jeremy Grant in Detroit, we're seeing it now. Like, when Jeremy Grant was in Oklahoma, we didn't see it. When he was in Denver, we were beginning to see it, but it didn't work out as expected there. And Detroit was pretty much a green light, as well as the fact that he got the bag, he got the money. I'm all over the place, but Derrick Rose returns back to New York. Second go around. Like I said, he was traded for Dennis Smith Jr. in the 2021 second round pick. As of right now, from what it looks like, New York won in this trade. I mean, Detroit has been rebuilding. This is probably gonna hurt. They've been rebuilding since they got Blake Griffin there. There, I said it. And this isn't a story that we have listed, but Blake Griffin is not even playing. Like, right now, they're sitting Blake Griffin to figure out what they're gonna do if they can get any trade value out of him. Tells me a lot. So like I said, the last game, I believe Detroit had a game last night, and it was like, oh, Dennis Smith Jr. is playing, and I'll add this part, and then we'll go to the next story. Something that helps a lot of players develop or get their game to a better place that isn't talked about is when you actually can get that opportunity to say, hey, I want to improve my game. I want to be a better basketball player. I think it may be in my best interest to possibly go to the G League. And the G League is there for that purpose. And a lot of times it's not used. And it's still something that as a fan of just basketball in general, it's just not given its proper credit sometimes. So that's all I was gonna give on that. Like I said, I feel like New York won, especially with the fact that you kind of can run that unique double combo guard option with Quickly and Derrick Rose, because Quickly now we're starting to see can shoot. He's comfortable with shooting his three. I will agree with a gentleman I follow on TikTok. He's probably got one of the best floaters I've seen in the game in a while. He's very comfortable. For him, he's very comfortable shooting it, and he knows that, and it's a term you hear naturally, timing is impeccable. And there's no exception. Timing is very impeccable with him and using that floater. So that's how I look at that entire trade and how that all went. The assistant coach for the Indiana Pacers resigned due to personal and health reasons. Bill Bano. I appreciate his Nate Bjorkgren presented this statement. I appreciate the impact Coach Bano has had on our players and the Pacers organization over the last 5 years. All of us at the Pacers wish him the very best as he transitions to his next chapter. Adrian Wojnarowski initially reported that Bano had been on a leave of absence for 2 weeks and resigned because of mental health issues. This is what we talked about earlier about mental health. Health over wealth. Like, I'm emphasizing that big time. Bano has privately described a need to step away from pressures and workload of the NBA grind amid the pandemic. Bano's father died in 2019, and his mother, who was diagnosed with cancer, died in April 2020. Wojnarowski also reported that the Pacers assistant lost multiple close friends during the COVID-19 pandemic as well. The 58-year-old did not fully rule out a return to coaching down the line. And they go over his accolades as to who he coached or worked with along the way. I don't see... Well, and I don't think anyone has an issue with this. I think this is something that it's good that he was able to witness or realize, like, hey, I need to step away. Like, if we go back and look at it, it benefited him in the long haul. But Karl Anthony Towns taking that time period away from basketball to kind of grieve, process, relax, take a moment was very beneficial and even more resourceful in him handling, coming back. Because we got to look at it. Minnesota won't have a good year anyway. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but it is what it is. And they, like I said, they may be on a rise now, but you still have to look at the reality and knowing that you have to. And this goes back to the statement related to after Chadwick Boseman passed. Take your time, but don't waste your time. Like, manage the time you have and the ability to do what you can with what you're given. And that's kind of where I'm at with that. Like I said, I'm glad that he was able to see that it was in his best interest to go ahead and step away, and it worked to his advantage in the long haul. So, huge props to him for making that big decision, and hopefully, in his time or on his time, he will find his way back to the league, or possibly find himself in a better position as to what he really wants to do with his life or with his routine. Because that's really all that matters is people being happy with where they are and where they're going and what they're trying to do. And that's that on that. That's mainly how I'm gonna look at that whole breakdown. Got a few more stories, sports wise, and then we'll get into stuff. The All-Star starters and the reserves have been announced. That's how long it's been since I've recorded, obviously. The starters, I'm gonna go ahead and run down the list of the East and the West starters, and I'm gonna do the starters and reserves for the East and the starters and reserves for the West. On the East, we have Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Bradley Beal, Joel Embiid, Kyrie Irving. Then we add in Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, James Harden, Zach LaVine, Julius Randle, Ben Simmons, Nikola Vucevic, and Domantas Sabonis. On the East, we have LeBron James, Stephen Curry, Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, Kawhi Leonard. And in the reserves, we have Anthony Davis, Paul George, Rudy Gobert, Damian Lillard, Donovan Mitchell, Chris Paul, Zion Williamson, and Devin Booker. For coaches, on the East, we have Philly coaching staff. We have Doc Rivers coaching staff from Philly, and on the West, we have Quinn Snyder and his coaching staff from Utah. I want to say this because I found it. I understood what it was about, but it was kind of like a little odd in seeing how it played out. I felt like Philly was going to be the best team to get the 1 seed or have the best record. But it was like it took them a while to officially confirm that Philly was able to run away with having the best record going into the All-Star break. Because that's how they usually pick the head coaches for the East and the West. Utah has been playing solid basketball. I still don't find it. I still am trying to understand, as a fan of just basketball as a whole, how Donovan Mitchell does not come up in the top conversation of MVP. That's, me looking at it as just a basketball fan and just looking at the game. And I know it's a lot of guys who will look at other players and say, well, what about this player? Or what about this player? So it's a tough view, close call type of scenario. This is LeBron's 17th All-Star appearance, which is amazing. Durant, this will be his 11th. So a couple of players that were removed and replacements, and we'll break that down. Kevin Durant will not be, he's injured. He will not be back by the All-Star. I don't know why I want to call it weekend, but back on All-Star Day on the 7th. So he's being replaced by Domantas Sabonis, who then, by having him replaced, that puts Jason Tatum in the starting lineup. I'm gonna get to, and I'll add, and then on the West side, in the Western Conference, Anthony Davis is still out due to injury. He won't be back by All-Star, so Devin Booker has been put in his place. Now, this led me to asking and inquiring about how this would work for the East, as far as who is going to be, like, how would this all play out? Because, okay, Sabonis was being put in as a reserve. That then made me wonder, well, they'll put him in place of Durant, but they said they did it based on positioning. So then position wise, that put Jason Tatum in the starting lineup because he was the option that they looked at as a starter. And then my next question was, well, out of those 5 guys, who will then be the actual captain? And if I remember reading the article correctly, because I was able to like ask and get some insight on it, because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing what it all came down to. Let's see. So Durant, even though Durant isn't playing, Durant will still be drafting the teams. Now that then causes me to look at it as you would likely have to give the first pick to LeBron, because LeBron is already going to be on his team, so he has to pick his other 4 players. And then Durant is picking 5 players. So, well, actually, I take it back. Durant would be picking first because he needs to pick. He has more players to pick. But then on the reserves, it's not going to matter. Of course, when we do the starters or the reserves, the $1 million question and then the redundant statement becomes, who's left out? Why didn't this player make it? And this conversation came up in a Clubhouse conversation or a Clubhouse room that I was in yesterday. And I'm going to talk about Clubhouse. That is a topic that I'm definitely want to make sure I put some time into talking about during this show. But I'm going to share this now. There are 24. So there are nearly 300 players in the NBA. We'll just look at it for what it is. Or if not, over 300 players. Out of 300 players, you are trying to find the 24 best players. And out of even in 24 players, they have to be conference oriented. So you have to find 12 players in the East and 12 players in the West. And the challenge becomes the 5 that get the start in the East and the 5 that get the start in the West are voted based on fans and just the process of coaching and who has the records. Because everyone a breakdown that hit with the West was, well, how is Luka starting but Dame Lillard isn't starting? And then you got to remember, we're kind of almost in I don't know when this is going to happen, but I have a hunch we're going to go to a point where there's going to be positionless voting. It's early, but if you hear it now, you'll know and you won't be surprised. But they picked who they picked, or players were put in based on how it was picked. The reserves are usually chosen by the coaches and also I don't know if the commissioner is involved with that, if the commissioner is involved with that or not. A conversation that came up yesterday, which I had no problem with. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown kind of sort of don't deserve to be in the All-Star game. And that was that person's opinion, and I had no pushback about that because every bit of the All-Star selection is based on opinion. It's based on perspectives. There are a lot of guys who suddenly have a sudden urge and play pretty good basketball. A lot of people could almost say Jamal Murray should be in the All-Star game. But then you also got to look at it. Has Jamal Murray been consistent all year? It's some guys that are a solid lock. You have to say they play basketball and are doing a great job. Zach LaVine, I'm giving, like, it's certain guys I'm looking at on this list and I'm like, you can't say that they didn't earn their spot of being an All-Star game. James Harden, Zach LaVine, I'll say Julius Randle, because I thought Randle had a solid first half of this season. Like, he's been playing pretty good basketball. Vucevic, even with the team not being the greatest, and when Markelle Fultz went down, he was still able to keep the team going and keep it at a good pace. Sabonis getting that spot based on Durant's injury. I'm glad he was able to get consideration. And a lot of this is incentive based too. A lot of people think Zion Williamson shouldn't be an All-Star game. I don't really disagree with that. I mean, I don't. It's tough to call, because a lot of people could easily say, "Hey, get Zion out, bring Brandon Ingram in," because Brandon Ingram has been playing pretty good basketball. But it's what you see or what you observe, because how people look at the game is almost like how people listen to music. No one's gonna listen to music the same, just as much as no one's gonna look at the players the same, or look at who's playing, being put in or not being put in. A couple names that were snubbed: Bam Adebayo, Mike Conley, Trae Young, Chris Middleton, Fred VanVleet, and Jimmy Butler, to name a few. We know, like I said, Booker was able to get in. Mike Conley, I don't see that as a problem. I mean, he didn't have the best stats, but it's like the Jazz breakdown of the Jazz conversation for me becomes important, because the Jazz went on a pretty strong win streak, and to have a veteran like Mike Conley, who has not been an all-star, it's almost like they could at least game this one. But, like I said, it then becomes a question. If you put this player in, who do you take out? And that puts you back into that rotational question and or conversation. So those are things to look at or factor in with how this gets done. Chris Middleton, you could have made an argument easily. Been a very key role player. Well, I don't want to say a role player, but a key factor in taking the weight or the load off of Giannis. Bam Adebayo, I mean, Bam had a good season last year and made the All-Star cut this year. It's, Miami's been kind of like teetering, playing, but not really playing. VanVleet doesn't get a lot of recognition, but he's been playing pretty good basketball. You can make a case for Shai Gilgeous. I think so. There are a lot of guys who are going to get their chance as we see players get close to that point of not playing basketball anymore. I think Shai Gilgeous has that chance. I think Tatum's going to be a multi All-Star player. Jalen getting the nod this year was a strong shot, because Jalen has had a pretty good season. And it's also statistically and his role within the Celtics organization. De'Aaron Fox, a lot of people know I love De'Aaron Fox as a player anyway, so I would have easily not left him off of the cusp. Trae Young, I think, could have made a case for being put in an All-Star game, especially for scoring purposes and the talent level as well. You can make a case for Gordon Hayward. Like I said, I already mentioned Jimmy Butler. DeRozan is kind of like that teetering, like DeRozan, Tobias Harris, and then they put honorable mentions: Jeremy Grant, Brandon Ingram, Christian Wood, John Morant, CJ McCollum. If Christian Wood was not hurt, I personally believe Christian Wood would have been an All-Star. There it is. And I think they put up at the top Terry Rozier, but Rozier's been okay, and then Rozier went through the battle of him and Trevor Graham, trying to get time in battling with LaMelo. And now, if we don't see it by the end of this season, next season, LaMelo's likely going to be a starter with New Orleans. I mean, with Charlotte. That's just how I'm looking at it, at least right now. So there was an alleged robbery during the Jackson State debut, which is important because the head coach of Jackson State is Deion Sanders. His belongings were found after he told reporters that they were stolen from the locker room during a 53-0 victory over Edward Waters. A school official told Nick Nias of WAPT that the items were found after Sanders' press conference. He then took to Twitter to explain the situation, stating that his assistant caught the person in the act of stealing. Because there was a misconceived breakdown of saying that they weren't stolen. It was very, very different. So let's see. So there was a miscommunication in what was happening with Deion Sanders stuff. So when he came in the presser, he thought it was stolen, but the member of the JSU staff had it secured. It was his first game at the stadium, the first for JSU at home since 2019. Hectic week. It was stolen, but they got it back. It was stolen out of my personal bag in my office, and my assistant caught the gentleman in the process of stealing it because she was alone. No miscommunication, my man, at all. Whomever putting out the lie that my belongings wasn't stolen is lying. My belongings were taken out of a zipped bag in my office, and more items were taken as well from my office. We have retrieved them since being returned. My staff member witnessed the crime. #truth. Lies. It was stolen because a staff member walked in on the theft being committed, but she couldn't fight a dude off. And I wonder what Barstool, because I guess Barstool Sports started up. It's knowing what you think happened versus what actually happened, because people have to physically be there to witness the story in its entirety. Let's see, two more articles. Oh, of course. You always have to remember if tweets aren't screenshotted tweets are what makes things go viral. Just FYI. But they did confirm that the items were recovered. We're gonna find out who did it, noting that he had his wallet and cell phone taken. And then Robinson later issued a statement on Twitter. Immediately following our win today, several items belonging to Coach Prime were taken from the locker room. Those items were quickly recovered and returned. While we consider this an isolated incident, we are thoroughly reviewing security protocols to ensure that this does not happen again. However, we refuse to let this dampen the victory of our JSU Tigers. Because even in the midst of this, no one is bringing up the fact that they beat the team 53-0. But the fact that the items were stolen is a big deal. Like, I want to be sure that we look at both factors of both pieces of the equation here, but a piece of the puzzle. Sanders added that he was pissed about the situation, and they showed his press release afterward. So yeah, that's kind of the main gist of it all being played out in its entirety. I'm going to talk about this story, but everything's still kind of being told along the way. Right now, Tiger Woods is, for the most part, recovering from a car accident that occurred a couple of days ago, back on the 25th, which was Thursday. This article was written on the 25th. The 45-year-old was driving Tuesday, so let me make sure I get my story straight. Tuesday in Rancho Palos Verdes near Los Angeles, shortly after 7 a.m. Pacific time, when his SUV crossed the median and veered across 2 lanes of road before hitting a curb, hitting a tree and landing on its side in the brush, LA County Sheriff Alex Villanueva said Tuesday. He sustained injuries to his legs that required a rod, screws, pins, and a surgical release of the muscle covering, one that surgeons likely believe would save his leg from amputation. Authorities believe that the incident was purely an accident, but will have to pull the black box event recorder from the vehicle to make that determination. When he saw Woods in the hospital Tuesday, the 15-time major champion told investigators he had no memory of the crash. Just a moment after his 5th career back surgery, the most recent crash threatens to set back his hopes of returning to golf glory. Right now, this ain't about golf. Like, we have gotta media. Even as a media person, it's odd to look at. This goes back to what I said earlier: health over wealth. We should be looking at him getting better. Not this could be a detriment to his future and likelihood of playing golf ever again. If he never plays another stroke of golf, he'll be fine. He probably got a lifelong deal with Nike. I think his deal with Nike was bigger than Jordan's. Hot take, but I'm just putting that on the table or bringing that up because making it about him not being, able to play golf again means you're pulling the point to the wrong direction, but I digress. They talk about other things related to it. They showed the actual vehicle. They then went on to state there was mention that the jaws of life were needed to get him out of the vehicle, which meant it was a very serious accident. The main thing is, and I know people don't think of it or look at it as such, but he was able to be taken from the accident and still be here. Granted, he's, because, I almost messed that up personally, because looking at it as he walked away, he was able to walk away from the accident. No, he didn't walk away from the accident, but he was able to be taken out of the vehicle to still live and to possibly recover or come back to a full recovery. So I send out nothing but positivity to him and his family, in dealing with anything of that extreme, because that's not something that everyone can say, hey, I experienced this and I got through it. It's not that simple, or it doesn't sound as simple as it presents itself. I'll just put it that way. That's everything for sports. I did all that in an hour. That's pretty good. Now we're going to get into stuff. Like I said, there will probably be a 20 to 30 minute diatribe of Clubhouse. It probably won't be. I'm just talking crap, but we have a couple of stories to address in the stuff tech world. Everyone has been hearing about and probably gotten tired of hearing about Bitcoin. You probably got 90 requests from people who want to tell you about Bitcoin or how to invest in Bitcoin. But there is $60 million worth of Bitcoin that's been pulled or confiscated from a fraudster. They can't get to it because the person who has the money won't give them the password. He was sentenced to jail and has since served his term, maintaining his silence though throughout, while the police have made repeated failed efforts to crack the code to access more than 1,700 Bitcoin. We asked him, but he didn't say. Perhaps he doesn't know. Bitcoin is stored on software known as a digital wallet that is secured through encryption. A password is used as a decryption key to open a wallet and access the Bitcoin. When a password is lost, the user cannot open the wallet. The fraudster has been sentenced to more than 2 years in jail for covertly installing software on other computers to harness their power to mine or produce Bitcoin. When he went behind bars, his Bitcoin stash would have been worth a fraction of the current value. The price of Bitcoin has surged over the past year, hitting a record high of $42,000 in January. It was trading at $37,577 on Friday. And just to give you all a numerical breakdown, I believe right now it's at it's at 46,000. Yeah, so it's past mark now. It's at $46,903.38 as of this specific podcast. Let's see. Cryptocurrency and blockchain website CoinDesk. Prosecutors have ensured the man cannot access the largesse. However, $1 equals 0.8349 euros. Just to give you a good idea of the math or the numbers and what we're talking about price or cost wise. The CEO of Riot Games is under investigation due to gender discrimination. Nicolo Laurent, who is the CEO of Riot Games, is under investigation following gender discrimination and sexual harassment allegations. This is not to be taken lightly, by the way. The investigation was announced after a legal suit was filed against the Valorant developer. Due to Laurent's stature at the company, a special committee of the studio's board of directors will oversee the investigation, which a third-party law firm is currently conducting. A Riot Games spokesperson told The Verge that the company is taking all allegations of harassment or discrimination very seriously, thoroughly investigating claims and taking action against anyone who is found to have violated our policies. According to the lawsuit filed in early January, Sharon O'Donnell is a former executive assistant at Riot Games who joined the studio in 2017 but claims her employment was wrongfully terminated in July of 2020. O'Donnell claims Laurent made sexual advances towards her. Shortly after, she filed a complaint about Laurent's sexual advances to the company's HR department. O'Donnell's employment was terminated. She believes that her firing was in direct relation to refusing the CEO alleged advances. Dude, if she didn't want you, damn, you had to fire her. If that's what that claimed to be allegedly, you could just take your ego out of the equation, man. But it's a lot of people. It's not that simple. Other allegations against Laurent include an incident where he told several female employees that the best way to handle COVID-19 related stress was to have kids. Dude, I'm surprised you haven't resigned. Riot Games is no stranger to controversy surrounding its workplace culture, which was first brought to light in 2018 following an investigation from Kotaku. In recent years, the company has faced several legal challenges brought forth by former employees. The only thing I can say to that is legal team or not, like, there has to be accountability on his part. There has to be. Like, I don't know how else I can really word or say what I really want to say or address regarding it, other than there has to be accountability on his part. And I'm not saying like by force, but it would make things just a little less stressful. Just my personal take on it. My personal take. That's all. So Alexa can stop listening because I knew she was going to hear me. Shut up. Okay. Yeah, I'm not editing that either. Your Amazon speakers can share songs to your friends' Echo devices. You don't even need the same device. And this is why I normally would mute my speaker before the show, but lesson learned. Ever heard a catchy song on your smart speaker and wanted to share it right away? You can act on that impulse. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you now, I'm not going to say the word or the name anymore, because if I do, that's going to happen again. So we're not doing that. And I don't feel like getting them to cut it off. You can act on that impulse if you have an Echo. Amazon is rolling out a music sharing feature that lets you share songs with the speaker contacts using Echo devices on the speaker's app. Ask the voice assistant to share this song with a contact, and they can not only choose to listen, but send a reaction. Thankfully, you don't need to use Amazon Music or even the same streaming service as your recipient. The speaker will try to find a track on any services available to you. If there's no match, you'll get a station based on the artist's name and song title. You can try the feature by enabling these communications with the speaker. If you're not sure about the contacts that can receive the song, you can start a new message to see who's available. Amazon characterizes as just the beginning of the sharing feature, hinting at possible upgrades in the future. For now, though, the feature could be helpful if you'd rather not turn to text messages or social networks just to spread the word about a can't-miss tune. At least so long as your friends are invested in the speaker's ecosystem as you are. I did a good job because I was making sure I was not about to say that name again. But it's good that they are making that a feature. It's going to be a challenge for those who don't have the speaker. But I will personally say, and this is just me, that's why a lot of my friends, I will come out and ask them, are you Spotify? Are you Apple? And some people are neither. Some people are Pandora. Some people are YouTube. So either way, if you can get the music to someone, share, just as the saying goes, share and share alike. That's kind of the best way to put it. But I will also share, because this was talked about a few weeks ago with the infamous hedge fund chaos known as the GameStop Reddit conundrum. It was perfect timing to hear or realize that the CFO of GameStop decided to, or is announcing resignation. GameStop today announced that Jim Bell, Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer, will be resigning from his roles on March 26, 2021. The company thanks Mr. Bell for his significant contributions and leadership, including his efforts over the past year during the pandemic. The company has initiated a search for a permanent CFO with the capabilities and qualifications to help accelerate GameStop's transformation. A leading executive search firm has been retained to support the process. Internal and external candidates will be evaluated. I'm not going to read the rest of the story because this is probably going to sound like me being a douche, but also being blunt. GameStop does not have much, like they've been on life support since like 2017, 2018. The pandemic popped and it didn't benefit them at all. Because most people who are buying items are pretty much going to buy and go. And if you're looking to figure out what you want to buy, because of how gaming is now, there are two beneficial options to gaming. There's streaming and or digital. And there's also Twitch. Like a lot of people, and I've explained this to people because a lot of folks, I'm not even going to say a lot of folks. There is someone in my training now who is like, I don't understand the gaming and I don't get Twitch and I think it's all a bunch of, it's stupid. People who aren't gamers don't understand Twitch, or people who don't understand the evolution of gaming don't get Twitch. Totally fine, totally okay with it. That being said, Twitch has kind of become a resourceful platform for those who are unsure of certain games, whether they want to buy them or not, or if they just want to get have a good streamer's gameplay playing as background while they're chilling or doing whatever. Like Twitch is the gamer's version of Netflix and chill. There you go. That's kind of the cleanest and the calmest way to describe it. But that's how I'm looking at it, or how I have observed it in its usage or in my accessibility. Because I am still planning to come out of non-streaming retirement and start Twitch again, because I loved it and I still do love gaming. Like I think I don't game as much as I used to, but now with a schedule that's a little bit more lenient and a little less stressful, I think gaming might become a thing again. So keep an eye out for that. If you're not already, the past BT pod also, I believe, and I'm still in limbo of doing this because I want to learn. I need to look at some other streamers and see how they're doing it, because I would like to find a avenue and or way to stream podcasts on Twitch. I thought about it. I really have. Like, I'm not being funny. I'm not like doing this as like a senseless odd ad, but it's something that I really have or would consider. I don't see it as a bad thing or a bad place to expose or get more listeners or views. And plus, you'd have VODs or things of that sort available if you want to go back and see, even if it was a group. Like I would personally use Twitch more so for the factor of the observation in, like, if it's a lot of people and we're having like a good conversation. But obviously we're talking about GameStop, but it just kind of veered off into the Twitch stratosphere. Since the last recording, I did get the second dose of Pfizer. I know a lot of people, I did mention I was going to give an update on that, and after that I never recorded, so everybody probably was like, Brian, where did you go? You didn't record. But honestly, I just, like I said, life has happened, and everything is about choices and decisions. So I'm back, and it's been we're looking at about almost 4 weeks since I had the vaccine. Haven't had any problems, haven't had any issues. All I can say is, and I've shared this in rooms. I'm saying rooms referring to Clubhouse, but I'm going to share this with anyone that is listening and everyone who has their points of view and perspectives about the vaccine. Number one, and the most important thing, do your research. Number two, and I've stated this at least 12 times in the show, so hopefully it will be on a shirt, maybe. Health over wealth. Look at your health and what's important to you and your personal health. If the vaccine is not important to your personal health, do not do the vaccine. and be okay with that. My important piece and my $1 million tip that I always am going to come back to, and I've emphasized this with people, is on both sides of the coin, stop giving people a hard time. People who did, and I know I probably have done the same exact spiel on 316, and if I have, my bad, but I really want this to come out and be presented to the mass. I think it was either 315 or 316 that I talked about the first dose. If you did not take the vaccine or do not plan to take the vaccine, do not give people that took the vaccine a hard time. And if you have already done the vaccine, don't look at those who didn't do the vaccine and say, what's taking you so long? Why you did it? Be understanding, be respectful, be kind. Because we don't know where people's health lies with taking or not taking the vaccine. And that's all I'm going to say on it. So that's, as I said earlier, that's on that. We're at our 115 mark. And I have an article that states, everything you need to know about Clubhouse. And they talk about a couple of things, but I'm going to do something, I wouldn't say a little different. I'm just going to do something that I know would work for me in getting this message out to others about about Clubhouse. Because a lot of people are unsure if they want to use it. I've had people that I've sent invites to that don't use it. Some people wanted to be invited just to say I was in and not ever plan on using it, as I said earlier. I'm giving it about a month or two, but I feel like it's going to go over to Android. This probably is going to sound crazy, but everyone remembers the Instagram transition. Prepare for the same thing. That's my light version of that. Now, what I have observed with Clubhouse personally is the smaller the room, the better the engagement. And the engagement meaning the people that are in the room that you're talking to, you get a very balanced space of good conversation. Now, good conversation can sometimes be you might come in a room and listen the entire time and not say a single word, but still feel like you were part of the room. There are other rooms that you can have where you may be the voice of the room, or you could say that key message or that key statement that no one else in the room thought about. And that becomes very resourceful. A lot of the larger rooms, I'm going to be honest, I'd say in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and to be clear, I've been on Clubhouse now for over 2 months. And when I first joined it, I think I was still trying to process and figure it all out, even down to something as small, because a lot of people don't understand, when you're invited to a room, you have to remember to mute your mic, because it's an unnatural habit of, all right, I got invited, but I'm still doing other stuff. If you really want to look at it and really understand it for what it is, it has the similarity of Zoom calls. When you're on Zoom, you aren't really told, sometimes it will be set up where your mic is on mute, but if you don't look at it and remember, hey, I'm on mute, let me make sure I am on mute, you can forget. We're human. So it's the same with Clubhouse in that regard of, just making sure that you set your microphone to mute before starting or listening in. I know and my friend always gives me a hard time of this being one of my phrases. Shout out to Special. Sharice's been my accountability partner for the last nearly 2 years with just life and everything. But she's heard me say this a lot, and I'm pushing Joe Budden on saying this too. Read the room. Literally, when you go in certain rooms, you are going to learn how to read the room, or you have to learn how to read the room. And I'm not saying if you aren't good at reading the room that you're going to have a hard time with Clubhouse. But what I am going to say is, if you come in and you don't realize that the direction that you might be going with the conversation might not be the consensus, then it can change things very quickly. Learning how to listen is very important. And I told someone I was a guest on a friend of mine's who I met through Clubhouse, Wayne Cole. If you're not following him on either Clubhouse or on Instagram, real cool guy. And he came, we were talking about different things. I'm following both his podcasts. I can't remember the name of the podcast right offhand because I'm not, as many of you know, when I record, I avoid phones at all costs. I really don't like using my tablet for the podcast, but I need the content that you're going to hear topics come from somewhere. It ain't gonna be just me, I'm just going to spit this off the dome. Bam, 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 bam. No, doesn't work like that. It's humanly unrealistic, but that's another story. We had this conversation because we both were looking at it as giving our perspective of Clubhouse. My perspective of Clubhouse and my breakdown of Clubhouse, like everything I said, is relevant to how you will gather or learn Clubhouse when you're invited. And by the way, I have at least 10 invites. So if you have an iPhone and you actually want to use the app and are interested, I don't mind giving, helping anybody out, because it's when you join, you learn how resourceful it is, and you also can find it being a great space to meet other people who are doing what you're doing, meeting other virtual planners or virtual assistants, meeting other planners and organizers, meeting other basketball fans, meeting other creatives locally. I haven't missed on any of it. Meeting folks who can talk sports or talk music, and it doesn't get chaotic. I can deal with it. Sometimes I've left rooms because of where conversations go. But the analogy, take close, and I'm gonna do this because it's gonna set the ambiance of where I'm going. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. Oh, sorry. Copy. We do not own the rights if y'all have not remembered that at the beginning of the show. Just close your eyes and set a good visual in your head. Think of high school and think back to high school when you were a freshman or a senior. We're going to take sophomore and junior out for intended purposes. You come into, you're in school, you come in the cafeteria, and freshman year, you're really trying to figure out, where do I want to sit, or where can I sit and feel welcome? Or is there even an open table for me to try to sit at? Versus if you're a senior, you're well versed, you have a place that's called home, and you can sit. You can sit with just about anybody, along with the fact that you are known for what you need to be known for, but even if you're not at a lot of tables, people know you. And this is a random scenario, so if you want to open your eyes for this, you can. But in high school, I was given the title of most personable, and at the time I didn't get it, but now being older, I understand it. Even down to a friend of mine having a conversation of me being put in my place to realize that I was an extrovert, when for the longest time I thought it was an introvert. But that goes right along with the conversation of thinking that I was a passenger when all this time I've been a driver. But that's neither here nor there. Anyway, we're back to you being in school. So your freshman year, you just joined, you just got into high school. And there are different tables to go sit at to get different information, or to just be around people who are doing what you're doing. That is how most of the rooms on Clubhouse are. The difference is you're not in an entire school. You're like, I've limited it down to the lunch room, because some lunch tables extend a couple tables, and some lunch tables it's just one table. Some tables it's just one seat, or not. I ain't even say one seat, but it's one half of a table. Like if you remember this, if you were in school at the time when they had the tables where you had the six seats on one side, six on the other, and you could fold the tables up. If you know, with the poor back support. It's probably why a lot of us got bad back problems now, but whatever. You'd sit at some tables and it was like, it won't but a few of y'all, but for the few of y'all that were there, y'all gonna have a good conversation. Like I can still visualize the basketball conversations I was having with people. swearing up and down that Kevin Johnson was one of the best basketball players. Don't know what I was thinking, but I was like, I mean, what you want? I was 16, 17, 18 years old. I mean, 14, 15, 16. I was figuring out some stuff. But I love talking sports and I love talking basketball at that time. And I mean, we were, being in school at the point when Kobe and Jordan were in there. Like, Kobe was coming into the game and Jordan was deep into his prime of basketball. Like, you had those conversations. You had the popular kids. You had the nerd, the true nerds. You had the folks who were playing Magic. You had the folks who played Pokemon. You had the card collectors. You had the fashionistas. You had the girls who, dare I say, was getting it on. You knew they was getting it on a regular basis. But as a freshman reading this room and looking at this area, you don't know where to sit and who's worth, who do you want to give your time to? So you get to a table, you find a good space to sit. You meet a couple people that may come to your table, or you may happen to go to their table. You network, you become friends. You might go, you'll go get lunch or whatever. And when you come back, you eat lunch and y'all talk. Or sometimes you might just be at the table and just eat because you're hungry and you haven't ate anything early in the day. So like for the freshman eye, it was, let me come in here and check out all this action. And from the senior perspective, it's, I'm here. Like, I'm here. People gonna gravitate to what I'm talking about if it's a productive and a worthwhile conversation. And there are a lot of people who moderate, and that's where the moderation comes in. Moderators are like the seniors, and they're not seniors in a sense because some of them are new, but they think they're seniors or they think they've been there for a while, or they could have made another account or whatever the case may be. I've even gone as far, like I would make it my background photo, but I don't want to deal with anything copyright related. Instead of it called green eggs and ham, I call it green beans and spam, which basically is like, these are folks who are getting the green bean or the moderator button. And a lot of them just feed you a lot of bullshit, or they capping hardcore. The cat in the hat reference. We found one called the cap in this app or the cap in the app. So same thing. But I'm bringing all those things up because there were just, it's like a unique ambiance of finding your happy place or your solid happy medium in the clubhouse scene. And the genuine truth is there's really no right or wrong place to find as being home. Like you can find a place where no one ever talks sports, but you have people that are just good energy. You might find a place that like it's one room that a guy plays music all day long. Greatest one of the most chill rooms. But it's just a matter of you finding a room and knowing what your place is in the room. Some places you're not, and I've left out one other part, and then I'll move forward. Some rooms you're gonna be happy just being in the audience because there are four. I call them 4 tiers of Clubhouse. There's the audience. There are friends of stage members. There's the stage. And then there's moderators. You could be on stage, not be a moderator, but still be a key element to the room. The problem becomes people who come on stage don't understand what they're doing when they come in the room or what's going on in the room. So they just come in and start talking. Like some people, it was like I've been in rooms where, and you know what? Let me backtrack. It almost can become that high school reference all over again because being in the audience as a freshman, being friends of the audience, or being friends of stage members is kind of like juniors in a sense. Somewhat you could say sophomores are led on stage, and the seniors are the moderators. I don't know. I'm freestyling, so I might be wrong. Those who have been Clubhouse users for a while, help me, school me, or bring it to my light because I would love to have that conversation. But all that being said, it's a great app for networking, and it's an even greater app to let others know what you do because your voice will tell others what you bring to the table. You can write 5 million things in your bio. The average person ain't reading it. Some bios are out of control. Like a bio is almost as bad as a person's Abby. If your Abby is trash and your bio is like almost 5 pages long, look, what are you here for? What are you trying to do? Giving me ripping off all the stuff that you've done? Yeah, okay, great. Like I've never like there was one point where people were, given the option and saying, "Hey, do you want me to check out your bio and give you tips?" I've been in a couple of those rooms and tried to get my bio looked at, but I never even wasted time because eventually I was like, my bio looks just fine the way it is, and it explains who I am very thorough. It tells you who my sports teams are. It tells you that I survived COVID. It tells you I was a statistic. It tells you that it's all about a constant quest to be the best version of oneself. It tells you what I went to school for. I tell you that I played in the band. Like everything that you need to know is there. So that's kind of what my page entails or how it's all broken down. I'm all over. Well, I ain't gonna say I'm all over the place, but I just wanted to give you all a true feel. Like anyone who has an Android that isn't on Clubhouse but maybe looking to join Clubhouse, or anyone that already has an iPhone and is wanting to join Clubhouse to figure out what the expectations or what it's all about, how it works. What I just gave is kind of the cleanest and calmest way to describe it. And I unpacked it as best as I could. So hopefully it made sense to you all. It made sense to me. That's all that matters. No, but for real, I hope you all got a good gist of where I'm coming from with what I shared. All right. Before we get into Ass of the Week and Pass of the Week, even though Pass of the Week is a little behind, but we'll still share that story. I would like to go ahead and give you a little bit of a music sesh. I've been trying to catch up with new music, but it's very hard. And I'm not gonna it's literally not hard. It's just so many artists come out with music. So to be clear, I haven't checked out any new music this week. I believe the last time we recorded, Cardi B's song Up came out. I did listen to that song. It's pretty good. Bryson Tiller's Anniversary Deluxe is out. So if you want to check that out, it's available. JID has a new single. Let's see who else I got. Robin Thicke, if it has not been mentioned, please go listen to Robin Thicke's new album. It's pretty good. Ariana Grande's not new album, but her album Positions has a deluxe that just released. Loyalty Over Royalty is by CJ. If you all do or do not remember, if you listen to or watch TikTok, he had the single Whoopty. Like that song is on there amongst other songs. And that's kind of all I got. Like everything else, like I said, I've been catching music, but then I've also kind of been like getting myself in a better position, and that's gonna kind of tie into the passing message when we get to it. Judas and the Black Messiah, that album came out because the big story from that was the song "What It Feels Like" with Jay-Z and Nipsey Hussle, because it was it's kind of like one of those, we didn't know Jay and Nip did a track together, so that came out. I did listen to Lucky Days EP Table for Two. It's an album, but that was pretty good. I believe the last time we recorded, Kelly Rowland's album came out. I need to listen to that as well. So that's what I got. Music, or for your music sesh, your Sony Escape, Sony Sesh, AirPod Escape, whatever you do, however you listen to music, consume and enjoy. And if you and I say this all the time, if you are not streaming through, if you're not Amazon, if you're not Spotify, if you're not Apple, totally fine. But keep your ear to the ground, and also network with folks who do keep up with music. Like I try to do that and make that my goal whenever I'm learning some new songs or some good music, because it's just kind of where we are with the musical scene, at least how I've seen it. So yeah, that is where I'm going with that whole scenario. So our asses of the week. First ass of the week is an oldie but goodie, but it's still a funny one. This happened recently, but it's still like an interesting factor. So there was a court case. This was at the 394th Judicial District Court. It was tweeted out by Judge Roy Ferguson, and it has what makes this video funny is the actual person who you like. The video itself, it's a Zoom call, but you see it where it says recording of this hearing or live stream is prohibited. Violation may constitute of court and result in a fine of up to $500 and a jail term of up to 180 days. So it made it okay to share it because the person who shared it is part of the court system. Like, I was trying to understand that, but it was like still funny to watch or break down. But Rod Ponton was ass of the week for this, and I'm gonna see if I'm gonna play the video in a second.
Mr. Ponton, I believe you have a filter turned on in the video settings. You might want to take
we're trying to. Can you hear me, Judge?
I can hear you. I think it's a filter.
It is, and I don't know how to remove it. I've got my assistant here. She's trying to, but I'm prepared to go forward with it. I'm here live. I'm not a cat.
I can see that. I think if you click the up arrow next to this.
So then they go on to like try to explain how to actually remove the filter. But the person who was, trying to go through this was trying to get the filter removed, but was like in the actual recording somehow it showed up, and it was just like a very funny moment in seeing it like actually be recorded. But that's and that's the world of technology, especially like I just talked about it earlier, the mute button and filters. And I think the new thing now that I'm seeing more of is like, oh my gosh, the green screen's chaotic. Like I'm to a point now where and I've said this for a while, but I'm really looking to get a green screen just for like having unique filters or unique backgrounds to look like I'm somewhere where I'm not, far away traveling, whatever. But like I said, this was a lawyer. The lawyer stated that actual message, and then the judge responded back, I can see that. And try to make it more fun and interesting. But it was a silly, like a random but silly ass of the week. Our other ass of the week, this one hit like pretty recent. The entire school board resigns in shame after forgetting their WebEx call was public. Another online failed faux pas, whatever you want to call it. You would think the entire world would know how the Zoom world works by now. Lawyers can be cats, congressmen are sometimes inverted, but pants are not actually optional. That didn't keep the Oakley Union Elementary School District's Board of Trustees from bad-mouthing parents during a public WebEx call, suggesting that parents just want their babysitters back or want to go back to ingesting marijuana. Before she realized the public was listening in, school board president Lisa Brizendine criticized parents who continue to be frustrated by the district's COVID-related school closures. They want to pick on us because they want their babysitters back. And this is so this is a tweet thread. So I'm gonna play some of this, and then we'll have a little bit of fun with this, and then we'll cap it off.
And they don't know what we do behind the scenes, and it's really unfortunate that they want to pick on us because they want their babysitters back.
Right.
That's how I feel. And they don't know what we do behind the scenes.
My brother had a delivery service for medical marijuana. The high clientele were parents with their kids in school.
Awesome.
My brother had a delivery service for
the full, and I'm not going to play the full video. The full 8-minute video below isn't quite as incendiary as the play-by-play makes it sound. It seems likely the board was just airing some general frustrations, unaware they were being watched. One member did ask, "Are we alone?" before telling the board how she felt about criticism from parents. Bitch, if you're going to call me out, I'm going to fuck you up. Yo, people gotta relax, man. Narrator, they weren't alone. They were being recorded. It went viral. Oh, this is the narrator saying this. Over 7,000 people signed a petition asking them to resign, and that's exactly what they did. Every single member has now resigned, according to a letter from Superintendent Greg Heitrick, who was part of the call, by the way. Wow. Aww. That sucks. So and I shouldn't be this way, but I'm transparent because y'all know I'm unfair, but real about how I see things. So I guess there's a Samsung Galaxy Chromebook 2, and the title that was shared for it is "Promisingly Boring." Samsung has unveiled its Galaxy Chromebook 2. So this is semi stuff, but we're gonna roll into past the message in just a sec. The past of the week as well. Samsung has unveiled its Galaxy Chromebook 2, its newest Chromebook that starts at just $549.99. It features a QLED display, a sturdy convertible chassis, and a bold red finish. It looks promising, but we still have some questions. So they go over a little breakdown about it, and I'll probably watch that. I may do that because that is going to be something that I will work on for the continuance of the of this podcast, is to get more Android stories in the mix, because people think that I am so Apple tied that I'm not Android oriented, but whatever. I still don't. This story still seems unreal to read, but it is wow. Pedro Gomez, who has been an ESPN reporter since 2003 and one of the country's foremost baseball journalists, died Sunday. He was 58. He's based in Phoenix, covered baseball for SportsCenter, Baseball Tonight, and other ESPN studio shows, live events, and radio. He covered more than 25 World Series and more than 20 All-Star games. We are shocked and saddened to learn that our friend and colleague Pedro Gomez has passed away. Pedro was an elite journalist at the highest level, and his professional accomplishments are universally recognized. More importantly, Pedro was a kind, dear friend to us all. Our hearts are with Pedro's family and all who love him at this extraordinarily difficult time. And this was written by Jimmy Pitaro, who is chairman of ESPN and sports content. Currently, his son Rio is a pitcher for the Boston Red Sox organization. I don't really. I mean, it's been like a tough run of 2021, because a lot of people's like, "Oh, 2021 is gonna be better." I was like, okay. 2021 came with, like, I still say it to this day. 2020 came with hands, and 2021 came with feet. That's literally how I've seen these last 2 years, or a year and first quarter-ish observation. Our pass the message is a simple one, but a real real observation to call for what it is. And that is that you have to know and learn how to put the right things and the right people behind you. I'm not going to give any personal stories, but I'm going to give personal stories as best as I can. Sometimes in order for you to go forward, you've got to make sure that the things are behind you are fully put behind you. And for some of us, that can be a lot harder than it seems, because we're looking at it as, we got to give this said thing all of our effort. When in reality, things only deserve as much effort as we give them. I probably haven't shared this, but I'll share it anyway. I have started a new chapter in my employment journey, and I'm very, happy and grateful for where I'm going and what I'm going to be doing. All of that being said, moving forward means not looking back. And when I initially was confirming everything going to the new role, I was still getting information from where I previously was, which then caused me to politely ask to be removed, to not get that information, only because it's not, and it's different reasons. One, it's not really relevant to me with what I'm doing now, but most importantly, I'm good. I say I'm good in that tone because I'm good with progressing and pushing to where I need to go and making sure that where I go is not where I was. So I've, and it's so tough because a lot of people will talk to you and they'll ask you about things from where you were, and you're like, I don't know any of that stuff because that's not where I'm at now. And it's not that I don't want to know, I'm disinterested, but it's not in me progressing forward. Even something as small, like the right things, I'm and I'll share this because I'm openly willing to be real with y'all. And I've done it before, but I'll do it again. So last year, at the beginning of the year, almost about this time, I think, I was able to do my affirmations. And I realized, my affirmations for last year were great. They worked. It flowed with who and where and what I was about at that time. But like things in life, your affirmations, your routine is going to change. So I'm going to share my affirmations for now. I am present in receiving what I deserve in all of God's glory. I'm going to give the best version of myself to myself. I will continue to strive for a constant quest to be the best version of oneself. I will learn coding and become a virtual assistant. I will embrace and receive my new job in its entirety. I will give time to myself and not feel bad for telling people no. I will have a better handle on not only my finances, but my poor spending habits. I am ready to get my Skrilla back. I cannot live like this anymore. I will bring my true self to light on a consistent basis. And I don't, like I said, I didn't need to share those. They don't have to be shared. If you are part of the routine, you've been rocking with this, so it ain't nothing new. But I'm gonna say something very key, and then we're gonna wrap up. Even with me moving forward, and like I said earlier, I'm moving forward. There are things that I'm leaving behind. Some things that I am progressing and working through or with, things got to come with me. The Skrilla references are back. And many of you probably, I think there's an artist who sings a song that's called Skrilla. A friend of mine who is from Cali, her and her sister, we're still good friends to this day. But she, I always can think back to that time when I first met her and I was a kid and she brought up the term about Skrilla and I was like, oh man, what's Skrilla? And she was like, yeah, it's about money. And I was like, okay. Didn't understand it much. I was in my teens, didn't think a lot of it then. When I got into my late teens, early 20s, Skrilla was the goal. Skrilla was what it was about. It was about the money. It was about making the money, saving the money, living through the money, and not feeling bad for being me. I got away from that. And it took me really having to step back and see it to understand how far away from it I got. Not necessarily say that I lived, I lived vicariously, but my priorities were trash as fuck. And so 2 emails that, and I'm gonna share them. I don't got no shame because I still check them every once in a while. SkrillaB2000 at hotmail.com and SkrillaMan2K at AOL.com. Those were and still are my babies. They reference 2 things. They reference the money and they reference me progressing after 2000. I progressed, but I didn't progress like I need to. So now I'm changing that. And now I'm ready to get my Skrilla back. So if it means I gotta get back into thinking like I was in 2000, then I gotta think like I was in 2000, which is when the check cut, I gotta cut it to where it need to go, and that's taking care of what I need to take care of, and that means me progressing forward while making sure that I'm not looking too far behind. So that's the message I'm gonna leave with y'all today. We're near a 2-hour show. I didn't want it to go this far, but I hope you all stayed the course with this show, and we'll get the shows back to a more lenient or more relaxing time frame without it seeming like it's gonna be forever and a day of recording. So I hope you all enjoy. Be positive. Be in a good space with yourselves. Not sure what's in store this upcoming week with sports. We may do a Premier League check-in, and we'll just see what life brings, because I know I'm still, my plan is to still be present, so I hope you all remain present as well. And with that being said, this is The Past, and I'm your host, BT, signing out. You have made it to the end of yet another episode of The Past BT Pod. I hope you gained something or walked away with some worthwhile information, whether it was related to any of the information provided about sports, about music, about technology, or possibly my personal fave, the Pass the Message. We want you to come in with an open mind and an open heart and walk away with something that's going to benefit you and carry you through your day, through your week, through your month, through your life. And that's the main objective here on The Pass. So I hope you were able to receive that. If you're all looking to get find a good place to host your podcast, you can check out buzzsprout.com. And if you're also looking to invest in a microphone, a lot of people have their angst or their differences towards it. But I'm currently using the Blue Yeti X, and I've been using it for a little over a year. And it's still to this day one of my best investments I've made. And if I always give this as my closing tip. If you are a creative and you have the space to create, do not do your least to give your best effort towards what you're good at doing. Until next time, y'all take it easy.